Hi, my name is Dr. Zachary Webb, and I'm the instructor of percussion here at the University of South Alabama. This is part of my video series on this year's Alabama Off-State Etudes for the percussion auditions. And today I'm going to specifically be talking about the high school snare drum etude, which comes from Mitchell Peters' Advanced Studies for Snare Drum. And this particular etude is etude number 23. And you don't have to play the whole thing. You're going to start about halfway through the page, and it starts on measure 27. And you're actually going to play the pickups to that measure. If you don't know what a pickup measure or a pickup beat is, it's just an eighth note that comes before the measure that you start on. So if you look at measure 27, you'll see that there are two flams, and then right before that there's a double bar, and right before that there's a drag on an eighth note, and that's the first note that you will play. So, but you start there and you go about halfway through the second page, and you end basically on 2/16 notes. It's not quite clear in the instructions online for Allstate, but you're going to play 2 quarter note buzz rolls, and then you have a measure of 3/8 that's also a buzz roll, and then that's followed on a 2/4 bar that has 2/16 notes that are accented. Those are the last 2 beats you're going to play. So I just want to start by talking about some basic things you can do with snare drum technique to kind of make sure that you're setting yourself up for success before you even play anything. The first kind of some snare drum checkpoints I want you to check out are you need to have the snare drum at a good height. Okay? Now, generally that's going to be about waist high. And you want to make sure you're also standing with good posture. So you want to be standing up straight, not leaning over the drum. A lot of students have a tendency to kind of do that. Just keep your body straight, keep your feet about shoulder length apart, and that's going to be a good starting point for you to kind of approach the snare drum. The next thing we want to make sure that you do is that you have a clear fulcrum, so that kind of acts as a pivot point. If you don't know what a fulcrum is, or if you've never heard that word, basically, let me grab a drumstick right here. This is your snare drum stick. Okay, this one's a special one, so it has a little different kind of shaft right here. But basically, you're going to hold this about 1/3 of the way up, and your fulcrum is just where you hold the stick, basically. So you're going to hold it between the fatty part of your thumb right here and your joint on your pointer finger, okay? And that's basically your fulcrum, okay? It's a big fancy word that just means pivot point. Now, your sticks are going to be held by your fingers, obviously, but you don't want them to be too closed, but you don't also want them to be too loose. So the way that I've always heard this taught, and that I teach it myself, is that it's almost like you're holding a bird in your hand. You don't want to hold it tight enough that you kill it, but you don't want it to fly away either. So generally, if it's about that, if you're holding it kind of like that, that'll be a good place for you to start. And of course, you're going to manipulate your fingers in order to get different strokes and to get different kind of buzz strokes, double strokes, whatever you're doing. Okay, but that's what we want to do. Make sure we have good fulcrum and that we have a good kind of bite posture and all that works together to get a good sound. Now on the drum itself, we want to make sure that we're having our sticks together in a point, right? We don't want them wandering off. And we want to make sure that we're not quite in the center of the drum. We want to be off center, okay? Just a little bit, by about that much. And the reason for that is because it's a concert style. We're playing a concert snare drum etude. We're not playing anything for marching band or a rudimental piece. we want to have more of a concert approach to this particular piece. So we want a little bit lighter of a sound. If we hit it right in the middle, it's going to be very articulate, which is good, but it's already a snare drum, so we don't have to be super articulate with it because it's going to be just articulate because of the nature of the instrument. So if we can move our sticks just a little bit off, that'll kind of back off the harshness of the sound and give it a little bit more of a lighter, open sound, so that we're not just playing the snare drum. We want the snare drum to be able to breathe. Okay, now let's talk about some musical checkpoints. Okay, some things that we want to do to make sure that we're playing the piece to our fullest potential. The first kind of tip that I have for that, or really question that I wanted you to ask yourself is, are you maintaining a steady tempo with clear rhythmic values? Okay, so I think at its core, we need to be able to play this particular etude with all the rhythmic values in place consistently with, basically, if we look at the piece, the eighth note stays the same throughout. So we want to make sure that eighth note stays constant throughout the entirety of the piece. If you're having trouble doing this, what I would encourage you to do is take out all the grace notes. So for example, if you have flams, take out the flams, just play the regular note. So for example, if we're looking at the very first measure, we have the pickup, which is a drag, and followed by 2 flam eighth notes. Just take out the grace notes. So instead of playing 3, 4, and flam, flam, we're just going to play and 1 and. Okay? And just do that for the entire piece and really work on what the rhythms are. You might have to work through, try to figure some out, but that's okay. We need to make sure that we have a good, solid foundation in order to put the other ornamentations upon as we play the piece. So start with a good rhythm and making sure that we're staying steady throughout the entire piece. Now, some other things I'll note for you, particular things like if we look at measure 32, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th measure after you're asked to play, we have what I like to call a sequence. So we have 3 or 4 measures of a rhythmic structure, and then we have that whole structure repeats with a different rhythmic value. So the first, if you'll look, we have 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, and it goes on after that. And then if we look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measures after that, this is where it says Mezzo Forte. We're going to have the same structure, but with triplets. So we have 1, triplet 2, triplet 1, triplet 2, triplet 1, triplet, triplet 1, triplet, triplet 1, flam, flam. Okay? Then right after that, we have the same thing, but instead of playing triplets this time, we have 30 seconds. So if you kind of look for those sort of things, that'll help you really learn this a lot quicker. Another thing that I want you to be kind of thinking about, the first thing we talked about was rhythm. Okay, the next thing that's going to be the most important is, are you playing the dynamics that are written? Okay, a lot of the times, and this is included with myself, I will be playing something, and I'm going to, let's just say my pianos are here, and let's say my fortes are here. Okay, the problem with that is that there's all this space here, and there's all this space here. I can always play softer, and I can always play louder, okay? So what I want you to really work on is kind of taking your dynamic range and expanding it, okay? So if we look at the very beginning, we start forte. I don't believe there is a fortissimo, okay? So we have a forte right here, and we have mezzo piano, and then we have a mezzo forte. The mezzo forte is going to be between those two, Okay. Now we don't have, I don't believe any piano markings, but we do have pianissimo, and that's normally marked with the two little p's, P, and that happens in the second line on the second page. So that's really going to be your softest dynamic level. So what you need to experiment with is trying to get different levels of dynamics, and I would just, go through, and you can even make a basic exercise with eighth notes. You might be used to doing this with marching band. Just do 8 on a hand or something similar that you can have, that you're familiar with. Do something. It's important that you do something that you're familiar with, and really, okay, here's my piano. Okay, now you can go up. You can go piano, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo. You can also go down. So let's say you're playing 8 on a hand at piano. Now, the first time maybe do piano, and then see if you can get it softer. Because if you can get it softer, then you're not playing your softest. And there's always just room to kind of expand that. All right, something else we need to think about, roll quality, okay? So if we look, there's nothing on the first page. If we look at the second page, I believe that's where the rolls start. We have 1 in the second line, and we have 4 or 5 more towards the very end. Now, because of different tempi, we can have different roll speeds, but I think for this one, the best roll speed that's going to work for you as a player and as a young percussionist, and really if I were playing this, I'd do it the same way, is I would just keep a 16th note skeleton underneath those rolls. Because that is, one, going to make sure you're staying in time, but also it's in the right range for the roll speed of that particular tempo that you're playing. So just stick to 16th notes and make sure that basically you are keeping that kind of pulse underneath the roll structure. As far as the grace notes are concerned, just try to make sure that your flams are open and kind of build from there. So we want to make sure we have a grace note for the flam, and then we have that doubled basically for the drag, and that you're getting a good 4-stroke for your 4-stroke roughs. If you want kind of any more information on that, there's a lot of resources you can check out, or feel free to contact me. Just shoot me an email and I can send something your way. Right? And if you need anything else in terms of the snare drum piece, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to help.